A man who controls nuclear silos and commands an army of millions just did the unthinkable. He wept on national television. Kim Jong Un isn't mourning a fallen general. He's begging his people to have babies. While the world mocks South Korea's demographic collapse, its secretive neighbor is quietly dying. It's the ultimate paradox. A dictatorship that can command a missile launch, but can't command a baby boom. And the reason why is darker than you think. This isn't just a statistical glitch or a niche demographic study. For a regime built on the cult of personality and fueled by massive human labor, a shrinking population isn't just a headache. It's an existential threat to its very survival. If the cradle stops rocking, the entire machinery of the Kim dynasty begins to rust from the inside out. We are witnessing a silent, biological rebellion that could achieve what decades of international sanctions and military pressure couldn't: the slow-motion hollow out of a nuclear state. To the outside world, North Korea presents a facade of infinite human resources. We see the terrifying precision of military parades, where tens of thousands of goose-stepping soldiers move as a single, tireless organism. And we assume that in a state where the government owns your body, manpower is the one thing the Kims will never run out of. The conventional wisdom has always been that a socialist paradise is a demographic engine, a place where hero mothers are celebrated for churning out the next generation of laborers and warriors for the revolution. For decades, the regime has leaned on this sheer human weight as its greatest strategic weapon. But if you look past the polished propaganda posters of smiling multi-child families, you'll see the gears of this engine are grinding to a halt. The nurseries are growing quiet, the schools are thinning out, and the regime is discovering a terrifying truth. They can command a nuclear missile launch on a whim, but they are losing the power to command the most basic human instinct of all. As it turns out, the Kim Dom is facing a crisis that no amount of secret police or ideological training can solve. While we obsess over South Korea's record-breaking birth rate collapse as the ultimate demographic warning, we have missed a much more terrifying anomaly. North Korea has managed to achieve a rich country crisis without a single cent of the wealth. It is a biological paradox. The first nation in history to grow old and shrink before it ever got rich. Usually, cradles go quiet when societies become modern and comfortable. But in the North, the birth rate didn't plummet because of prosperity. It vanished because the future did. This isn't just a policy failure. It is a quiet, state-sponsored extinction. But there is a sharper, more subversive reality hiding behind the famine statistics. We often view North Korea as a monolithic machine of obedience, but the regime has accidentally birthed its own most effective form of resistance: the rational mother. The true hidden truth is that the state's total collapse in the 90s did more than just break the economy. It performed a collective, psychological sterilization on the survivors. In the cutthroat survivalism of the Jangmadong black markets, North Korean women transformed into ultimate pragmatic entrepreneurs. They realized that in a kingdom where the state takes everything and provides nothing, a child is no longer a revolutionary gift. It is a financial anchor that could mean the difference between life and death. This isn't a passive demographic dip. It is a silent, nationwide womb strike. Kim Jong Un isn't just facing a shortage of soldiers. He is facing a generation of women who have quietly, individually, and collectively decided that this regime simply does not deserve a future. The regime's fatal error lies in its archaic belief that human reproduction is simply another production quota, no different from output targets for steel or coal. The conventional logic of a dictatorship assumes that if you block the exits by banning contraceptives and decorate the entrance with medals and hero mother titles, the demographic numbers will naturally recover. It is a hardware solution applied to a software of the soul. But here's the critical distinction that most analysts miss. You can legislate a physical act, but you cannot legislate a psychological incentive. Kim treats his people like a factory that needs a forced reboot, failing to realize that the operating system of the North Korean family has been permanently rewired by the trauma of survival. To the state, a newborn is a future asset, a soldier for the front line. But to a woman in a Chongjin market, a child is a future liability, in a country that has already proven it will let its children starve. This is the regime's terminal blind spot. They are trying to command a future from a population that has spent the last 30 years just trying to survive the present. This isn't just a demographic dip, it is a biological mutiny. For the first time in 3 generations, the North Korean woman has found the one asset Kim Jong Un cannot seize by force: her womb. He can requisition her house, her food, and her labor, but he cannot requisition a child that does not exist. This is the regime's terrifying core secret. The North Korean people have discovered the ultimate silent veto. By refusing to reproduce, they are stripped of everything else, but still hold the power to starve the regime of its future soldiers and slaves. When Kim wiped those tears on national television, he wasn't just performing for the cameras. He was facing the cold realization that his absolute authority stops at the bedroom door. In a state built on total mobilization, the unfair advantage has shifted to the masses. They are using their own potential extinction as a weapon of protest, a collective psychological strike that says, if you cannot guarantee a life worth living, we will not provide the lives to sustain your kingdom. But the regime's desperation has now pushed them toward a final, catastrophic gamble. They aren't just fighting low numbers anymore. They are fighting the physical limits of a land where the infrastructure of life, the hospitals, the power grids, the very soil has already decayed beyond repair. To force a baby boom in a wasteland isn't a recovery. It's a death sentence for the newborns they claim to cherish. And here is the ultimate trap. The more the state tightens its grip to save the population, the more it strangles the last shred of human incentive to survive. We are witnessing the terminal collision between an unstoppable demographic collapse and the immovable object of a totalitarian ego. The pressure is mounting, the safety valves are failing, and the entire kingdom is now one heartbeat away from a total, irreversible implosion. This is the final, unmasking moment for the Kim dynasty. We've spent decades fearing North Korea's weapons, yet the most potent threat to the regime wasn't a nuclear strike. It was the quiet, empty cradle. While South Korea's collapse is a symptom of a society that has become too modern for its own good, North Korea's is the sound of a people who have lost the fundamental reason to endure. Those tears on national television were the ultimate confession. A dictator admitting he is powerless before the collective, silent verdict of the human spirit. The womb has become the final frontier of resistance. By refusing to bring new life into a wasteland, the North Korean people have achieved what no foreign army could. They have successfully denied the regime its future. The kingdom isn't falling to a revolution of fire. It is dissolving in a revolution of silence. The ultimate truth is finally clear. A power that cannot inspire the will to live is a power that has already ceased to exist. This silence is the final verdict on a century of absolute rule. It proves that while you can chain a person's body to a factory floor or a trench, you cannot conscript the human heart into believing in a lie. The North Korean crisis tells us that the ultimate foundation of any society isn't its military might or its ideology, but the collective belief that tomorrow is a place worth visiting. Without that spark of hope, the most fortified borders in the world are merely walls around a graveyard. The Kims may own the land, the laws, and the lives of 26 million people, but as long as the nurseries remain quiet, they no longer own the future. They are reigning over a sunset, watching a kingdom fade away, not through a revolution of fire, but through the simple, heartbreaking refusal to endure. If you want to understand the true cost of power without purpose, and why the most dangerous threat to a dictator isn't a nuclear strike, but an empty cradle, subscribe And join us as we continue to pull back the curtain on the world's most secretive stories.